Hello, Carly Solelli here. This series of videos is going to be about PowerShell. Um, Personally, I've been working with PowerShell about 6 years, and it's a great scripting language. I use it to automate and control Exchange Online, Exchange on premises, Active Directory. I've used it in things like Azure and SharePoint and Teams and security and compliance. It's just an amazingly powerful language, and if you use any Microsoft products, then you can use PowerShell to automate and to manage and control that particular product. I'm trying to make this series of videos here an introduction to the language. So I hope that whether you are an experienced programmer and you have learned lots of different programming languages, or whether this may be your first programming language, your first scripting language, I hope it doesn't matter. I hope that either way you might find these videos useful. And I have two goals in mind, okay? My first goal, I want these videos to be interesting and to be fun. All right, so anyone can go out and grab a commandlet and pass in a few parameters, but that's not really a lot of fun, is it? That's not really very interesting. You don't get a chance to be creative or to feel that you're building something, and you can't really do a lot in terms of automation. But when you get into the language of PowerShell itself and repetition structures and different types of logic structures, if and else, and nesting those inside of each other, and arrays and classes and objects and array lists, and reading things in from a CSV file and writing information to log files, when you really get into the language itself, it becomes much more interesting and much more useful than simply grabbing a commandlet here or there. So one of the things I'm focusing on in this series of videos is to do that, to appeal to that sense of creativity, to appeal to that desire we have to build something with our hands. I don't know about you, but if I do something that's repetitive and monotonous, I get very unmotivated, almost depressed. If I can't be creative, if I can't do something new and fresh, if I can't build something, then it kind of wears me down, and I'm not going to stick with it. And I think learning a programming language is that way too. If it's boring to you and all you're doing is watching a PowerPoint presentation or trying to memorize different commandlets and parameters, but you're not really building something, you're not really getting to apply your knowledge to something interesting that stimulates your creativity and your desire to build something with your hands, then I don't think you're going to find it very motivating. I don't think you're going to be able to stick with it. So in this series of videos, we're going to focus on projects. We'll go over something new. We'll talk about something new in PowerShell, some new technique, some new structure, new series of commandlets, and then we'll use it in a project. So we're going to make things like a ping sweeper, maybe a port scanner. We will create games. We're going to make a role-playing game and a blackjack game and a tic-tac-toe game. And we'll look at ways that you can code sort of artificial intelligence or logic into that game. We'll create a checkers game. We'll make a database. Now, was PowerShell created to develop games with or databases? Heck no. We all know that. But if we take what we learn and we apply it to these projects, it will make it interesting. You'll find it motivational. All of a sudden, instead of tediousness and oh, boring, I gotta learn another stupid programming language, it'll become, hey, ooh, I'm gonna change this in the code. I'm gonna change that in the code. I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna add some new feature or functionality. And the next thing you know, you'll be totally motivated, because it's sort of like an artist with a palette full of different colors of paint and a paintbrush. And to me, that's what coding is like. It's like you paint with the code. It appeals to that same sense of creativity, that same satisfaction or that joy, that happiness that you get from being creative and making music or painting. Well, you get that same feeling when you code something. You get to be creative with it. You paint with the code. or it's like you're being a poet. But instead of writing a poem, with words, you're writing your poem with code. But you get that same feeling of happiness and satisfaction and joy that you're creating, that you're being able to express yourself, that you're being, there's just something in the human spirit that longs for that. And so if we can lock onto that and tap into that, then we're motivated and we'll stick with it to the very end, and we'll learn the language and we'll get proficient and we'll become fluent and very fluid with the language. And that's only going to help us later on when we want to do more sophisticated things with it, more sophisticated types of automation, when our scripts go from, tens of lines of code to hundreds of lines of code, and then to thousands of lines of code. So we'll look at that. We'll make games, we'll make databases, we'll make utilities that we could create for the help desk. We're going to make some graphical user interfaces or GUIs. And so, hopefully we find this interesting, we find this motivational, we find it fun. That's my first goal. My second goal, I want to keep these videos agnostic. And by that I mean, we don't want to focus on any one particular Microsoft product or area. A lot of people, they only learn PowerShell to manage Exchange, either an O365 Exchange online or on premises, or they only learn it for SCCM, or they only learn it for Active Directory or SharePoint or some other Microsoft product. But, sometimes when you do that, you don't learn as much of the language itself. You just only kind of grab that little block or module or part of it that you use for that one little area. And so it creates all these blind spots, when you're scripting. There's all these gaps in what you know about this structure or that structure that could really help you when you're writing your scripts. That could really help you when you're automating things. But because you never spent time to focus on the language itself, it wasn't something that you absorbed, or it wasn't something that you found useful. How many times have you learned something and you're like, why the heck am I learning this? What's it good for? Pragmatically, what's the usefulness of this? And so I hope by keeping it agnostic, we can focus on the language. We can look at how you would apply or how you would use or why whatever this new item we might be covering in that video is useful. And then, you can focus on the language itself, learn it. Hopefully it's interesting. Hopefully it's fun. And then when we get to the end of the series and we've sort of laid a foundation of PowerShell, then I plan on creating another series of videos if time allows, where we specialize, PowerShell for Exchange online or Exchange on premises, PowerShell for Active Directory, PowerShell for Teams or security and compliance or SharePoint. You see what I'm saying? But first, we want to lay a foundation. And when we're laying that foundation, we don't want to be so specific to one Microsoft product. We want to keep it plain vanilla. We want to keep it generic. You know what I'm saying? We want to keep it agnostic so that what we learn, we can apply it towards anything, whatever it is we're going to use the language for. So I hope we have fun in this series. I hope if you hate programming, you're not gonna, I don't know if I can do much to make learning a scripting language interesting if you absolutely despise programming. But if you don't, if maybe this is, you've programmed for a long time and this is like your 20th language that you're studying. I hope it's interesting. And if you've never programmed at all before, I hope that this shapes your idea of programming and of creating things with code and of learning a scripting language or a programming language. I hope that it leaves you with, just sort of a feeling in the back of your mind that it's fun. It's not tedious. It's not boring. It's exciting. It's fun. It's interesting. To me, PowerShell's become my crack. And I was kind of that way when I learned Java and when I learned C++ too. I became obsessed with it, total OCD on that language. I stay up till 2 a.m. trying to code something, an idea that I had. I wake up early, a couple hours early, even before I have to be at work, and because I want to try scripting something in PowerShell and see how it works. Stay late, even on the weekends. it becomes something that you enjoy, and because you enjoy it you find it interesting, it doesn't feel like work anymore. It feels like play. And wow, isn't that sort of the secret to being happy in life? Find something that you really enjoy and figure out a way to make some money at it. So I hope it leaves you at least with that feeling that it's something that can be fun, that can be interesting, that you can be motivated to stick with, and it will immensely help you in your career no matter what you do. If you're a system administrator like me, if you're a programmer or developer, if you're a consultant, whatever you do, I can promise you this: PowerShell, oh my goodness, it's kind of like almost like a universal language, like knowing Latin. If I want to learn Spanish or French, if I knew Latin, well, it becomes really easy because there's sort of a foundation there, and so PowerShell is almost sort of a foundation or a core language with Microsoft products. Okay, I could talk forever, but I guess that's a pretty decent introduction. So I guess we'll move on to the next video and part 1. Thank you for sticking with me this long.